Hello, this is Peter Levesque. It is Thursday, May 15th, 2008, and this is my video blog, this time on knowledge mobilization, and I'm in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia, which is beautiful. It seems I spend a lot of time in British Columbia, but that's quite by accident, but it's not a bad place to be. I'm here for a seminar an invitational seminar on knowledge mobilization. And the work that I do with my company, Knowledge Mobilization Works, is I define mobilization as making what we know ready for service or action. And that may be a simple definition, but it's packed full of things. How do we make it? Who is we? What do we know? When is it ready? What do we mean by service or action? All of these kind of questions are the kinds of things that I spend a lot of time thinking about. On the flight here today, I was reading again Etienne Wenger's book on communities of practice, and it occurs to me that there's a community of practice emerging at this meeting, facilitated by some sponsors and facilitated by people who work in various institutions and organizations. However, I want to emphasize that knowledge mobilization is about people. CFRIO, which is a center of liaison and transfer in the province of Quebec in Canada, talks about that knowledge mobilization is 10% technology and 90% social. I want to stretch this a little bit further in that part of the social processes involved in knowledge mobilization sometimes get caught up in a process of reification. We have this abstract set of concepts that we're trying to turn into something tangible, and in that we have to participate. We have to be hands-on. Knowledge mobilization is a contact sport. You have to meet people, you have to talk to them, you have to engage with them. You have to understand what the needs are, what the feelings are, and deal with individuals in their whole being. In a conversation I had with Graham Dixon last week in Victoria, he talked about leadership dealing with the whole person and all of the elements, their history, their present, their future, their relationships to other people within institutions, their family backgrounds. All of these things have a role to play in how we make what we know ready for service or action. The process of reification, the process of taking something abstract and turning it into something tangible, also leads to an identity that emerges out of it. We become knowledge mobilizers, just like researchers in universities identify as researchers, whereas in fact what they're doing is playing a fairly important process in a complex research process. But because they engage in those processes, they take on their participation in that process informs their identity, and they become part of the research. They become researchers. Etienne talks about this as, the fundamental elements in a community of practice. And I think part of the discussions that we're going to have here are about how do we study and research knowledge mobilization? How do we support knowledge mobilization? In my presentations, I talk about research being what, so what, and now what, and that most of the incentives and the infrastructure for the research community are focused mostly on the what, the production of data and information, a little bit on the so what, on the analysis and meaning and interpretation, but almost never on now what, which is really the actions and decisions. And maybe for most of the people involved in the university, that's not where they want to be. However, I don't think we can derive the full value from what we know until we engage in processes that answer that now what question, that say what programs, what policies, what products, what processes, what people skills are we going to enhance, what profits are we going to derive, what products are we going to produce. All of those kind of questions are fundamentally about value, and value always happens in an exchange process. It always happens in social interaction. Now, it may not be face-to-face, and it may not be with someone in a market. We can engage with people in all sorts of different ways, whether it's through eBay or Amazon or Facebook or YouTube. we're engaging in an exchange process, and fundamentally we're determining the value, whether it's the entertainment value, the education value, the enlightenment value. All these things are related to one another. So I hope that my participation in this process leads to a better understanding of how do we make what we know ready for service or action. And I believe, based on the initial conversations that I've had, that I'm probably going to learn an awful lot that I can put into my practice. So I look forward to being able to post more entries over the next number of days, and hopefully my thinking gets pushed even further.